No, well, for us, that's money that is not like a set bill. And then what we do is we bring money home. We leave some money in the bank. We bring some money home, and we do like an envelope system, or we divide it up. Because I just gave you a blank one of our personal budgets, and so those things are just money that we set aside, and we just put $20 for dog food over here or whatever, and we just set it aside. But it's not like an actual bill that comes in the mail.
So some things you do the envelope system, and you have.
Yeah, we try to.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you have something?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
How do you know, like, signs that you're out of control? Like if somebody doesn't have a budget and, you may not really get yourself too far into the hole this month, but if you don't change something, 6 months from now or a year from now, you're really going to be hurting. But is there some things you might be able to tell somebody, this is some things you could look out for that's kind of like a red flag?
Well, I guess probably the first red flag is are you able to pay your bills on time? Because usually what ends up happening is like, okay, it's due on the 14th. I don't have the money for it. I'm going to pay it on the 20th. And then, well, you know what? I'll just pay it next month. It's not technically late for, they won't, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that's probably the first sign that you're not budgeting well or you're not following a budget or you need to manage your money better is, if your rent's due on the 1st, on the 31st, do I have enough money to hand my landlord that rent? If you don't, well, why not? You're spending, maybe your rent's too high, maybe you need to move, maybe that's a problem, or maybe you're just spending your money somewhere else and you're not leaving enough left over. So, I think that would be the first sign.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
I know when Nathan and I were looking at buying a house, and you were talking about budgeting, and I had kind of thinking, do you have enough money to pay the mortgage and then all of your bills included and maintenance and all that kind of stuff? And we had heard a principle of not having your bills for your house cost more than 40% of your income or something like that.
Including all your utilities.
40, I think. 40.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we went to the bank and they approved us for a house, and it was way above that 40%. So we kind of came back and we were like, well, how can we afford a house that costs that much? I don't understand. And then we started talking about it, and it was just like, well, they of course want our money, and so they want to strap us financially,
Right.
And so Nathan and I, we had talked about how, we like going on a family vacation. And so if we get a house that stretches us financially, we won't be able to tithe, we won't be able to give, we won't be able to go on a vacation because all of our money will be going to our house. So that was one thing we tried to take into consideration when we bought a house, that let's go under what the bank says, even if the bank says it's okay.
Right.
Does it fit us? Does
Right.
it fit our lifestyle and our choices, like us being in control of that decision, not the bank?
Right. Right. Yeah, and then you have money left over for things that you would rather do, and
That's right. Who doesn't want a nice big house?
Right.
It just wasn't going to be our.
Right. Yeah, and that's where you have to decide, like you said, like with the vacations, would I rather have just the big house and stay home, or it's like maybe that's the decision you make, or
And some people like that.
Right, and some people may want to do that, but and it's like for us, like one of the decisions we made very early on, I think it was even before we were married, was that Trisha was going to stay home with the kids, and it's like, so working off a single income is a lot harder than a double income, obviously. Even if the second income isn't huge, but it's like that's just a choice we made, and so it's like some of our purchases have to reflect that. It's like we a lot of pretty much all the kids' clothes are hand-me-downs or Goodwill, and it's like if you've seen my minivan, it's all rusted out and old, but it's paid for. So it's like if that's a decision we made. It's like we could have a nicer car and nicer clothes, but then she would have to get a job, and it's like that's not a priority that we want. I'd rather have older clothes, and that's just that's just a decision that we made.
Now, do you try to set aside a percentage to put into your savings account each month? Like, is that like, do you set a goal for that?
Yeah, right now, no, because we have some medical bills and some things that we're trying to catch up on or to get paid off. So we have a little bit in savings, but right now, all of our extra money we have goes towards paying those things off.
Gotcha.
But
Let's just say, theoretically, all those things were wiped out. You would put, you would have okay, now this much is going into savings.
right,
And you very strongly advise not to touch that savings
yeah.
unless it is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, I think it's really, if you can have an emergency fund, because, you're going to need it. All you need is to get sick and miss 2 weeks of work, and all of a sudden you're not getting paid, or, you go in and the company says, hey, we're closing down, and then you're looking for a job, or, you fall down the steps and break your leg, or who knows what could happen. Or, like last year, we had a pretty decent sized savings account last year, and then all of a sudden our water softener broke, and it was like $3,000. It took pretty much all of it, but it's at least it was there. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's, if you can have money and savings set aside for that rainy day or that emergency, I think it's really smart to do that, because sooner or later, something is going to happen that you're not expecting.
I was going to say, going back to Kirk's question too, one thing we just did, and we do this periodically, is we write down for a month every dollar we spend.
Yeah.
And boy, that's an eye opener.
Yeah, it is.
Circle K $15, Chipotle $12. It's so yeah, we just finished doing that for a month, and that's a really neat thing. If you don't you want to see if you have self-control or if you're struggling with it, you can see exactly where every dollar is going, and then the next month you're going to be a lot better at trying to manage it and be better about it.
If you see $80 for cheese, you got a problem.
Right.
Well, you can sometimes clearly see in ours is eating out.
Oh yeah, because I remember the first time we did it, we thought, we eat out a lot, but it's not that much. And then we did it, and it was like $400 a month. We're we're spending that much money in restaurants? It's no wonder we're struggling. And it's that's a nice car payment. It's is it really worth, ordering pizza that much to, and it's I know, but maybe $200 a month, But it's it's when you see, like you're saying, when you can see where your money's going, and then you can say, man, this obviously is a priority to me. This is what I'm spending my money on. Do I want it to be? Is this something why am I spending so much money on eating out? And then be like, oh, I don't have any left over to give, or I can't pay ahead on, I can't save. Well, if I stopped going to McDonald's, I could, So it's just, seeing where your money's going and setting your priorities. What do you want to do with your money? What does God want you to do with your money? It's eating out that much is not wise. It's not healthy. It's, So.
There's various ways too to build into your budget kind of those emergency fund things. One is just, I know Dave Ramsey says set aside $1,000 no matter what.
Yeah.
Even before you pay all of your outstanding medical or whatever, because you're going to use that in an emergency situation. It's going to come up whether you have these other bills or not.
Right.
But one of the other things that I do is I schedule for 4 weeks, and then every 3 months I actually have an extra pay. And it kind of, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room when
Right.
things come up.
Yeah.
So that's another place where that emergency fund kind of kicks in, is kind of like you're planning for four weeks in a month.
Right.
But then every 3,
Yeah. Then you have extra money to
Yeah.
save or whatever.
So
Yeah, that's smart.
the other thing is, when I budget for certain things, I'll budget a little extra. vacation or Christmas or different things, I'll actually put extra in there, knowing that we don't need quite that much,
Mhm.
but it's set aside. And it's the same principle with savings. Once you get to the point where you can definitely set aside, you want to do that up front.
Right.
You know, before, and just like you're setting your tithe before everything else. You do it up front, and then you're not having to think about it as much on the back end, because if you wait till the end, you won't really have it.
Yeah, you'll spend it on something else
Right.
if you wait till the end of the month and say like, hey,
Amazon.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very true. 'Cause no matter how much you make, you can find a way to spend it.
Just something else to think about is if you, it's just a thought, is if you have your wife working, if you can, try to live off of your income.
Yeah.
Because, and use her money for the savings, or extra, because if the time comes where you have children and you want her to stay home,
Right.
well, you may not be able to if you forced your living to require the income.
Right.
So if you
Yeah.
can discipline yourself, you know, maybe when you first get married, you're both working because, you know, you got to do something with your life, you know?
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, while we have a baby, and I want to stay home, well, I'm sorry, honey, we can't afford you to stay home.
Right.
But if you can discipline yourself to stay on the husband's income, then she has the freedom to stop anytime,
Right.
anytime that she would want.
Yeah.
Don't strap yourself with a house that's too big that requires two incomes.
Right.
Right.
I can say something to that too, because, when I was working, when I was married, and my husband was working, and we did live on his income, so that I was able to stay home, but the other thing is I did the analysis on it, and by the time you spend more money for gas, your insurance, your clothes, and all that kind of stuff, here's what I figured out. This was back in '93 when I had my son. I was gonna be working full-time for $125 a week, and I thought, you know what, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And so, and then once I had so many of them, it was like, no, you're not gonna pay any daycare for that. That's what I had figured out, how much daycare and all that kind of stuff would be. So, but it's kind of nice if you can work part-time or do something like that, because that still works. There are a lot of moms have flexible kinds of schedules, like nursing and things like that, and they can still work and they can, you know, have their family. But like, it ended up, the Lord gave me this job when my kids were little, and I only worked 12 hours a week, and it was in the evening, and I made $150 a week. So I'm like, okay, I only worked 12 hours for $150 versus stressing myself out, putting my kid in daycare, and you know, driving every day, getting dressed every day, and going to work for $125. That wouldn't have been worth it, you know?
Right.
But it's like that way, I could stay home with my kids all day, and then I worked in the evening, only a few hours in the evening, 4 nights a week, and I made an extra $150, extra $600 a month.
Right.
So, you know, it costs you to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It costs you in taxes too.
It's good to do, that's very good insight.
I did it, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
we
good
did
analysis,
it, but
yeah.
then we won't get into what happened to the house that was paid off during that time.
Right.
Someone just decided to take that money out and do some other things with it, and it was trouble. It was
Yeah.
awful.
Now your savings, is that just purely like in the bank savings? Does that have any like, you do like IRA contributions out of savings or any investments in savings, or that's just pure savings?
Yeah, it's like for me, we have like a 401k thing that comes out of the check. So we don't really budget for that. But I mean, I guess it depends on your situation. If you'd, depending on how much money if you had in savings account, if you think it would be better served, getting more interest or whatever somewhere else, then I mean, you would just have to make that decision.
Ideally, it would be good to have both.
Yeah.
If you have an emergency savings, because, I mean, your transmission's gonna blow out, or...
Yeah, and you can't really cash out an IRA.
Some liquid money right
Yeah.
now, otherwise your credit card, you do
Right.
it. But, you also need to think about the future, plan with some sort of a retirement or I mean, a lot of jobs have a built-in 401k type thing, but if you're self-employed, sometimes you don't, you know?
Yeah.
So it'd be good to have some thinking along that line, some planning. Because that time comes before you know it.
Right. Unless you want to work till you're dead.
When I was 20, I thought Jesus was going to be coming back on my And now here I am, ready to. What happened? Yeah, we're still waiting for it. Yeah. He's coming. He's coming. We're getting closer.
Every day.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Tomorrow, Saturday. That's right.
Good job, Brian. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a comment or question or? So take, the other thing is, help people. I mean, you guys hear this, I'm sure a lot of us understand some of these things. It's a good refresher. You shared a lot of good scriptures that I never would have thought of in terms of budgeting, the idea of planning and how it's part of God's heart and what He does. And those are all good things. And, we do have in our church people that need help along this line. And I think a lot of people that, I was talking Sunday about being able to help the needy. Sometimes all the needy need is to learn how to budget.
Yeah.
Their needs would go away, if there was a better control. And so I think sometimes, our ability as a church to be able to really help others financially is teach things like this. And maybe, do some one-on-one mentoring so there's some accountability, because really sometimes people just get into a lifestyle and it takes a little while to change that. If they're willing to sit with you and say, hey, can you work with me on my bills for a few months so I can kind of get into a new habit, a new way? Well, you can meet a lot of needs in their life. And, you get people out, I hate to see this, you get people out here buying stuff from like a rent a TV, they pay $4,000 or $5,000 for a TV because they can get it for $15 a month, or something like that. It's just crazy, it's crazy. But sometimes people all they can think of is, I can afford $15.
Right.
But they don't have that long-term planning and see what they're really spending. So, you run into people that have needs. If they're willing to talk to you about their needs, take the next step and say, well, do you have a budget? And don't you? Okay, well, how do you spend your money? What do you do? Just take a little bit of a risk and step in there and have a conversation. You might be able to help somebody.
The other thing you were talking about earlier was paying your bills on time. And, if you have credit card bills, sometimes you can accrue those late fees and your 28% interest.
Yeah.
You're just locked in there forever.
Yeah.
That's kind of their plan, but it's really kind of, if people can pay them on time and get them paid down quickly, then you're not servant to the lender
Right.
as quickly. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you are, And I've seen some of those late fees on there, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's half a payment sometimes, or even half a payment. It's ridiculous.
The other thing you can do with credit cards, which is what we do, is we buy things with credit card, we pay it off every month. But we get a credit card where I'm able to get miles for flying. So we can go to Guatemala every year for free.
Wow.
You got to pay for your food and that, but as far as the flight down there, somebody else is paying for it because we use that credit card. Pay it off, and then there's miles and say, hey, you can buy a ticket. So if you ever wanted to do,
Yeah.
That's kind of a prerequisite.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Something in your
self-control.
budget. Like, if you budget $400 for groceries and you use the credit card to budget $400 for groceries,
yeah, pay that
Yeah.
bill.
then
Yeah.
pay the $400. But don't buy $600 in groceries, because then you're
Right.
screwed.
Yeah.
Pay your gas, but pay it off. So in other words, your budget is your money's budgeted.
Right.
But you're paying with a credit card and paying it off,
Right. Yeah.
and then you get a free plane ticket and you can go on a mission trip.
Yeah.
But you're right, self-control is huge.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's really what God's been showing me through it. Is like it's the self-control. It's like, you can have the perfect budget, you can make it all work on paper, but if you don't exercise the self-control, it doesn't matter how well you've planned it out. It's just not going to work. So I think that's really the key.